Good evening, everybody. Hopefully, we are live. I think I've got everything set up. We're going to take a look at a bunch of different stuff tonight. First thing I want to see if I've got set up is if I'm. Let me see if I can't set up comments. I would like to be able to actually have you see comments and uh, potentially. So I'm going to try to get this set up. Yep. Hey, okay, cool. Okay, so wanted to get the comments set up so that if you ask comments when I come back to the screen, they're not on every screen because that would be complicated, but they are on the screen so that we can actually answer some questions if you're asking them as we go. So that seems to be working at the moment. So let's talk about what's going on with our storm. So let's start with radar. I think that's probably the best place to start. And we may have to move this out of the way at times, but at the moment, looks like those the comments aren't in the way. So if they get in the way, I'll let you know. But let me pull up the whiteboard and I can draw some pictures for you. So obviously, this is where everything's getting going. We can see we do have some convection offshore here. That is basically kind of the start of our storm, which is just really starting to develop now. You can see the pretty classic kind of S shape to the back of the precipitation shield as things get going. Right now, looks like we're about on track. Does seem to be a little bit more precipitation to the west currently of the storm. Whether that continues or not throughout the storm, we'll have to see. The models, I think the models had this piece of precipitation. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. As you know, these are always a little. There we go. Oh, you know why? Because I'm on the wrong screen. Sorry. We'll get there. This should draw a circle for me. No, it's not going to want to do that. No, okay. It's supposed to draw a circle for me, but anyway. Anywho, this piece of this energy was on the models was a little more out to sea, not that far out to sea, but it was a little further east. So does that mean anything or not? Kind of tough to tell. We are definitely starting our storm on the western side of the guidance from what we were talking about a couple of days ago when I was saying, we kind of have to wait until the storm forms. The storm, there was some areas of low pressure kind of out in this section of the Atlantic, but basically all of the pressure falls were mostly along the right along the coast, which essentially said either way the storm was going to kind of move right here off the North Carolina coast. But if it started east, the chances that it went a little more out to sea was higher. However, as has always been the case with this storm, the storm's going to make a pretty close run at us, and it's still not going to be anywhere near ideal for snow for us. And it's also going to, there's going to be a real sharp back edge. That's really well modeled on every model. Exactly where that sharp edge is going to be, we're kind of going to be on the back edge of the back edge. So I think it's entirely possible that, this is not a huge area we forecast for here at the West River Weather Guy. It's just the basically from Fairhaven and Castleton down to Bennington, and then Brattleboro up to about west. Oh my goodness, brain freeze here. Up to 89 essentially. So on 91, so it's not a huge area that I forecast for. So you wouldn't think that would be the snow gradient will be that huge. But we're gonna, as we go through snow totals, we're gonna see that southeastern parts of Windham County could definitely still see some pretty good snow totals. Not huge, but definitely the kind of stuff you're gonna have to pay attention to. And places like Castleton and Fairhaven, if you're up in that area, my guess is you see very little snow. And like I said, I'll show you. We'll get to those snowfall totals in a little bit. But before we do that, I want to see the next thing we wanted to see here. Was satellite imagery. So let me get rid of this chat because it's a little hard to see. I should still be able to see if you chat later. It should show up. So if that gets in the way, let me know. Okay, so let's go down and take a look at the radar along, and you can really see the storm starting to get going here. That's pretty classic development. Again, here you can really see the S shape. Let me get up to the whiteboard again. The S shape that the clouds start to get there. That basically is when you know that a storm is in rapid development. What will happen eventually, obviously, this will become a big comma shape kind of over the northeast. It probably will even wrap around a little bit more than that. This storm could actually have kind of a little bit of an eye form. It's going to be very strong here, which is not quite the same thing as a hurricane eye because this is not a warm core system, but essentially something like that will probably happen as the storm comes up in our direction. And so really the precipitation shield, the question is just how far west does precipitation shield goes. It's really been the question with the storm the whole time. So which is why, like, if you're locked in for precipitation totals across, central Massachusetts and eastern Massachusetts, they're going to be in the heavy snow. One thing I try to always keep in mind, there's these little things, little bits of wisdom I picked up in undergraduate school, which I try to remember because it's been a little while now since I went to undergraduate school. But one of the things I remember, wise old Dr. Zabransky, who was a great professor of mine, actually my oldest professor when I went to undergraduate school, he used to say that if it snows in Boston, this was sort of for Plymouth, but I think it holds true for Southern Vermont as well. I went to undergraduate school in Plymouth, New Hampshire. If it snows in Boston, it's not going to snow, not big snow at least, as you get further away. Really, and that's true for us here across Southern Vermont. If it's not going to mix in Boston, then we're probably too far away from the low pressure system to get into to the precipitation shield. Now, precipitation shields are not always the same size, and that rule of thumb I wouldn't, always guarantee, but it's not a bad thing to keep in mind because sometimes the models will go a little crazy, and some of these old, things that get learned after years and years of forecasting are helpful. Boston's not going to change to anything. The outer Cape may get a little sleet and freezing rain to mix in, but generally if the Cape is looking at snow, and if they're looking at 2 feet plus of snow in south of Boston, like Plymouth County, then that almost never means we're going to get snow here, at least big snow. We can certainly get some fringe effects, and we will, so, but not huge. So let's see. Let's take a look. Also, I wanted to take a look at one of the things you can look at to tell what's going on. Let me zoom in on this a little bit here, if I can. I'll do that over here. We'll scroll down a little bit. So one of the things you can see, this is a pressure tendency map. I know I probably never showed you this before, any of you this before. Oh, I got a question here. How much are you expecting for Stratton? I'll get there in a minute, I promise. Let me get through this slide, and then we're going to get to some snowfall totals. So the pressure tendency is where pressure is dropping, and you can see cold colors here mean it's dropping, and that kind of tells you a direction of where the storm is. So the storm is probably currently kind of right about here. The surface low is somewhere in that range, and you can see we're kind of headed in this direction here, general direction. And I think if you try to draw a line of, and it's also kind of pushing east a little bit, so that does tend to bring us a little bit more out to sea. So let's get to snowfall totals here as we go. Here's a map. If you saw my video this morning, I think we're basically similar to what we were looking at this morning. So let's take a look at what that means town by town. I'll probably go through this a couple different times over the next 15 to 20 minutes. For areas west of the Green Mountains, essentially, so western Rutland County and western Bennington County, Fairhaven, inch or two of snow. Wouldn't even be surprised if Fairhaven, it was just some flurries in the air. Rutland, 1 to 3, could get a little bit more. Rutland, Paulet's 2 to 3 inches. Manchester, 1 to 2, not much there. Arlington, 2 to 3. Bennington, 2 to 3. Arlington and Bennington, the further south you are, does give you a little bit better chance at getting a little bit more accumulating snow this time. It'll be very fluffy snow. For the Green Mountains, place up by near Pittsfield, 2 to 4 inches of snow. Mount Holly, I think 3 or 4 inches. Peru, 3 to 5 inches of snow. Dover, 4 to 6 inches of snow. And as you get further south in the Greens, area like Searsburg, 4 to 6. Reedsboro, right down there on the Massachusetts border, 5 to 7 inches of snow. Definitely possible. Let's see about the ski areas. So I think Killington's looking at 2 to 5 inches of snow. There's not going to be a huge bonus, unfortunately, for this storm for the ski areas. They're just not going to quite get the jump in snow totals that they sometimes do for our elevation-based storms. This is really about the dynamics of what's going on, not about elevation. A little bit of a bump, so you still get some lift, a little bonus lift out of the ski areas because they stick up higher than anybody else. So Killington 2 to 5 inches of snow, Chemo 3 to 5. I think Bromley 4 to 6, Magic 5 to 7 as it's a little east of Bromley. Stratton I think is about 5 to 7 as well. Magic 6 to 9 inches of snow. So it's not a huge storm for the skiers. It will be amazing skiing snow though, because it's going to be super light, super fluffy. It could be a little tricky travel-wise because it's going to be very cold tomorrow. We're going to not probably get above 10, 12 degrees in most areas, and that makes the roads very hard to clear. So the roads will stay snowpacked. So roads will be a little slick, although it won't be, it's just snow, not ice, but it could be a little slick on the road. So you're going to have to be careful getting to ski areas. But if you get there, it'll be fun snow to ski in. It won't be heavy on the legs. It's not going to build their bases a tremendous amount, but it will be really fun to be out and ski tomorrow and Sunday. There should still be plenty of it left over to kind of push around, and real easy, fun turning snow. Areas east of the Green Mountain. Here. Talked this morning. Thanks again for the question there, Lisa. So yeah, I think 3 to 5 inches of snow or so for Stratton. In terms of the gradient and why this has been such a difficult forecast from the very beginning, the real problem has been sound went out. Anybody else have it? Audio was gone. Why? Working on the audio. All right, it says I have. Oh, it's back. Okay. No. Thanks for letting me know. I want to know if I've got issues. Thanks, thanks, Catherine, and thanks, Abe, who also texted me. Yeah. Don't know why the audio went out there. Maybe I switched to. I do have a screen where I cut the audio out, but maybe it did it by mistake. So if that happens again, try to let me know, and I'll just push forward. Otherwise. All right. Cool. Okay. Thank you, Kathleen. So we are in terms of where was I going? The realistic snowfall gradient over 30-mile instances. So I was talking about how Brattleboro and Peterborough, New Hampshire, are about 30 miles apart. And Peterborough, when I said 2 feet of snow this morning, that's probably a bit overdone for Peterborough. But Peterborough could easily get 1.5 feet of snow, and probably maybe close to 20 inches of snow in Peterborough. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see that kind of total. And Brattleboro, you just saw, I think 7 to 10 inches. So 6, 7, 8 is probably where Brattleboro most likely comes in. And then if you go to Bennington, you're talking 2 or 3 inches of snow, probably maybe 4. And so that really is interesting in that that gradient still could shift a little east or west. There's nothing currently about, if we go back to radar, there's nothing. Let me go to this radar, and we can kind of, actually, let's go back to this radar view. So let me pull that up. I don't think there's anything, let me get rid of my squiggles. I don't think there's anything current. There we go. Currently going on. Let me refresh this first of all, see if we can get a few new loops in there. And let's pull up, one of the things that's I think often helpful on this, let me pull up lightning. You can see the little lightning strikes here. This is probably, so the reason lightning is helpful sometimes is lightning is usually where you have your most rapid intensification of the storm. And notice that is quite a ways offshore. And in some regards, it's good that we are getting quite the snow shield going here, but as this will try to push the storm more to the north, where this was expected anyway. But really the question is, where does this back edge set up, and did we get any of this heavier banding? If you scroll, let me scroll in on this a little bit for you. Let me get rid of my squiggles. You can see that already we are starting, to get like a snow band going here, and it'd be interesting to see. Let me go to let me see what the observations are doing in New Jersey. See what's going on there. Really? Why can't I go to Plymouth's website? Okay. Let's try the National Weather Service then. It would be, so if we go to New Jersey, let's see what stations are reporting there across southern New Jersey. Current conditions. All right, what do we got? Nope. This is why you do this stuff normally. without, okay, observations list. There we go. So light snow falling over. It looks like most of southern New Jersey, Trenton, Mount Holly in New Jersey. That's not Mount Holly, Vermont. That's Mount Holly in New Jersey, which is actually where the National Weather Service site is. If you're in northern New Jersey, though, the snow hasn't really gotten north of, say, like Newark. It hasn't gotten up to Newark or Teterboro yet. Across eastern Pennsylvania and Philly, it's snowing lightly. And so, anyways, so the snow has started. Everything looks light at the moment. Nothing is reported as more than light precipitation. Although light snow can, as defined by the National Weather Service, actually isn't. I wouldn't say is super light. It can add up. Really, I think it takes until a half-mile visibility before I think it's a quarter mile or less is heavy snow. I have to check that actually to remember specifically. But in terms of snow totals, I think we would be looking at, or in terms of hints, we kind of have to see where that band starts to set up. It's not impossible still that band sets up a little further west than we think. In a place like Brattleboro, could get over a foot of snow. That's certainly not out of the realm of possibility, and all of us would bump up a little bit. It's also possible that things would move a little bit east, and we end up closer to the 1 to 2 inches. We're still sort of in the nowcast zone. So when you wake up tomorrow, you're kind of gonna know. Let's take a quick look at a couple other things that I wanted to show. Where was I here? Let's go back to the snowfall map just again in case you missed that earlier. So again, we're looking at 4 to 7 inches, maybe even 8 or 9 if you get far down into Brattleboro area, across southeastern, basically Windham County. 3 to 6 across for most of us, and then just 2 to 4 west and north, and closer to 1 or 2 as you head, towards the New York Vermont border. Let's take a look at. Oh, this is actually interesting. Yeah, let me pull this up for you. Nope, wrong thing. Still wrong. Is that the right thing? No, this one. Sorry. So as we take a look at the satellite imagery, let me zoom in on that a little bit for you. And I can make this longer. Can go 100. I think it's good to kind of see what's happened here throughout the day. This is kind of a good view. But you can see, first of all, you can see the sun going down. And you can really see as we start to build, the storm really starts to take shape. There was really all we were doing is moving energy over this area of low-level cloudiness all day. And then finally, this upper-level energy back here at the end catches up, and it just kind of kicks the low-level energy into gear, and it gets that storm going. That's basically how storms form in this kind of setup. So if you're a weather geek, that stuff's kind of interesting. And this will look really classic on satellite by midnight tonight, and certainly by tomorrow. Other stuff. Let's look at other thing I was thinking that I think tells a bit of the story. The cold air pouring in here. Let's go back and take a look at temperatures. I have the underground map up. So it was not that cold today, but it has definitely cooled off pretty significantly. And that tells a bit of the story of as we're seeping this cold air back down in. We're down into the teens now, and certainly just north of us we are. Let me see if I can't pull the map up. There we go. In Rutland and Windsor County, particularly in Rutland County, we're already down into the single numbers. And that cold, that's another one of those not necessarily always true. It can snow at any temperature. You always sort of hear it's too cold to snow. That's actually not true. It's actually never too cold to snow, but it doesn't usually snow when it's way below zero, unless you're in like Antarctica or something like that. Because usually for us, in order to have snow happen, particularly bigger snowstorms, you need warm air being drawn off the Atlantic Ocean and pushed over top of us. That's obviously not so the colder it gets, it does, that saying of, it's hard to snow when it gets too cold. Again, it's not physically impossible to snow at those temperatures, but it does hold true. And so temperatures are pretty rare to get a big snowstorm with us in the low teens or even in the single digits, which some of us will be today. A lot of times when we get big snow here, oftentimes we're in the low to mid 20s. That's usually kind of prime temperature wise. It's where the atmosphere can have the most moisture, and usually just kind of by the nature of the snow being thrown in our direction, that's usually what happens. So you can see these temperatures today. So today we actually had the kind of temperatures you'd expect. I was up, or most of us were up in the mid to upper 20s today. Those temperatures will be are crashing tonight, and they won't come back up tomorrow because we're going to have most our flow tomorrow is still going to be all out of the north. And that's also another, the flow is going to be out of the north because the storm's too far east of us instead of more of a northeasterly direction, which is part of the reason why this storm is going to be a bigger deal for the coast. For those of you who are interested in eastern New England weather, this will be a storm they talk about for a long time down there. It certainly has the possibility to bring the kind of snow totals that. Over 20 inches of snow in Boston would not be a surprise at all, which would make it a top 10 snowstorm for Boston. Which, interestingly, Boston's top 10 snowstorms are almost all from the last 30 years. Excuse me, I'm not really sure. It's interesting just to kind of have seen that, and don't really know why that is. Just happens to be the case that a lot of the bigger snowstorms in Boston have happened basically blizzard of 78 on. So that's 40 years ago now, but 45 years ago now for the blizzard of 78. But anywho, let's see. Let's go through those locations for snowfall one more time as we continue on. Unless anybody's got any questions, let me go back to the webcam and see if anybody else asked any questions. Is that why we get more snow, Catherine? Great question. Yes. So oftentimes for us in January, the pattern, the main energy in the pattern moves south of us. That's a great question. And as it moves, and as the pattern tends to move south, the jet stream tends to move south of us. We're often just locked in the cold. So we often do get more snow in February and sometimes in March. Also, as by March, you can get what happens is the particularly southern areas start to warm up. And so the temperature contrast is often larger in March than it is. And so that when you have temperature contrast, that's basically potential for storm development. So yeah, that's basically why February and March, sometimes December actually too, on kind of the front side of that, as we're going down temperature wise, we can get a lot of snow. Although that hasn't been true for the last few Decembers, except last December when we got the crazy snowstorm right before Christmas, but then it all melted. But other than that, in general, since at least in the last few years, we've often trended towards snow late in the winter. January doesn't tend to be super snowy here. I think February is probably climatological. I'd have to look, but I think climatologically that's our biggest snow month. You can get big snow in January because if the pattern is, it's still pattern dependent. But in general, oftentimes it is more of a February March thing. This February and March, we do look like the pattern. We're kind of moving out of the current pattern that we've been in with this real cold. Maybe there's been some signs that the pattern may flip. There's certainly a chance that we get more of kind of a wet system, although that's not locked in yet for later in the week. This week, as we warm up some, what happens beyond that, whether the pattern sort of reverts back to what we're doing right now, or if it tries to revert to something different, too early to tell. But there's some signs in both directions. The models have have waffled, and often they do on model flips or on pattern flips. We've been kind of in this cold, dry pattern with a trough in the east and a ridge in the west for basically since the second week in January. So we're working on like 3 weeks now by the time we get out of it. So that's wouldn't be surprised to see a model flip, but you could also hold on to it for a few more weeks as well. Which means for now, until the model flips, we could get an occasional warm day, but that's why we've been getting cold. And certainly, especially some of these radiational cooling nights. I've twice been. I was last Saturday 28 degrees below zero at my house, and this past, not this morning, but I guess it must have been Thursday morning, maybe. I forgot. I've lost all track of days this week with the snowstorm. But anyway, I was 24 below. So those are two of the coldest temperatures. The 28 below, again, that's my thermometer is not the best. That's one of the next things I want to upgrade is I want to upgrade to a better weather station. So that's one of the next things to do that I can link to the website and stuff. But I haven't done that yet. Probably wait till spring before it's so cold before I do that. But anyways, I still have a decent weather station at the moment, and that that was the coldest. I've had it for about 5 years. It was the coldest by 11 degrees that the weather station had recorded at my house. And at 28 below, and there was a lot of the underground map, which has a lot of quality weather stations on it. A lot of those stations recorded temperatures in the 20 to 25 below range, even 26, 27, right near me, down by the river. And that's real cold. And matter of fact, somewhere Nora, I was just listening to or saw a Twitter feed from Tim Kelly, used to is a meteorologist in and around Boston. I think he's been on a couple different stations over the years, but I don't think he's actually on a station at the moment. But anyways, he was posting on Twitter that somewhere in Maine had gotten timing of the storm. Thanks, Ryan. I will do that. 1 second. Maine, someplace in Maine last Saturday got down to about minus 36, I think he said, something like that, which was the coldest temperature recorded in Maine in 10 years. So anyways, timing of the storm. Great question, Ryan. Thanks for keeping me on track. What's happening? So we should start snowing, I think, before dawn tomorrow, and the roads could and then we'll snow off and on, kind of light to moderate snow all day. So even though it's not going to really accumulate a tremendous amount, I do think roads could be slick most of the way. And with temperatures in the 10 to 12, 13 degrees, I think it'll be pretty slippery most of the day, just as a kind of FYI. If you got to drive tomorrow, you're just going to have to take it slow because roads are going to be snowpacked. Even the state roads will probably be snowpacked because essentially especially below 15 degrees, salt is almost useless. So unless a road's being really heavily traveled, the snow will just stay there because you can only scrape down so much on the snow until you get sun to work on it, and then salt starts to work a little bit better. So just be prepared for that. It shouldn't be, that's not terrible driving. It's pretty, it should be consistent and pretty, but you just got to go slow and drive like you're bringing grandma to church. I've seen that meme somewhere too. So do that. And you should be all right. And then winds, that's another question about the storm. Winds, you've probably heard a lot about winds. I think winds are mostly a problem, not here. The peaks will be windy. That would be one thing if you're trying to ski tomorrow. The peaks of the mountains could have wind holds on them. Although I think the lower halves of mountains will definitely not be too bad. But the winds are more of a problem near the coast. We've heard a lot about winds because particularly for Cape Cod, there's going to be 70, 80 mile an hour wind gusts probably out of the storm. We're not going to see anything like that. 20 to 30, 40 miles an hour on the hills is definitely possible, but shouldn't be any issues with power here. I don't think I would be surprised if we had even widely scattered power outages. Not as windy as the storm we had a couple weeks ago, where the low pressure system moved much closer to us than this low pressure system will. So even though this storm is going to be stronger than that storm, because it's further away from us, it shouldn't be an issue. Let's see what else about the storm would be helpful. Talked about snow consistency. This will be fluff. It'll be easy to shovel. It'll be kind of a pain to plow because it'll just poof out in front of the plow, but not hard to push. So there you go. And let's see let's take one last look at that radar. Then we'll go over snow totals one more time, and then I'll probably wrap up unless anybody else has any more questions, which I will, like I said, gotta click on the right page here. Let's put this in motion. Loop image. Let's zoom back out one more time. And so what we're looking for here, that is sort of interesting. What will happen is you'll have a couple different bands that will develop. There'll probably be one that develops right near the storm that hasn't developed yet, but you'll have a band on the northwest of the storm. And this is the question for us. Where does this band, how far west does this set up? Where exactly does it set up? This is probably the beginnings of it. It's got a long ways to go before it actually develops. But does this band kind of move up over the top of us, or probably more likely just to the east of us? And that's where you'll get kind of a secondary snow. You're going to get a lot of snow right, or probably in southeastern Massachusetts. Then you could actually have a little bit less just west of Boston. And then kind of in the Worcester Hills get, which is pretty typical, but get a higher snow total again. The last question for us, if you're really rooting for a big snowstorm still, which is unlikely, but nothing's ever quite impossible, I suppose, does this band here push quite a bit west of where the models think it will, 30, 40 miles west of where they think it will now, in which case places like right along the Connecticut River could get into some of this bigger snow. Again, I don't think that's likely. It's not entirely impossible. So it's just as likely that everything swings a little further east and we end up kind of back in this area which as you can see is mostly dry and not really much snow happening, and we end up with very little. So the chance that we get really big snow or nothing is probably about equal, which is why I don't think either of those is going to happen. I think we're going to get kind of into this area here, which is going to give us a little bit of snow. Okay. Oh yeah, I was going to go over snow totals one last time, and then I think we'll probably wrap up. Like I said, unless anybody else has any questions, let me go back to here. No other questions at the moment. So if you want to ask a question, type away in the next 2 or 3 minutes. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up with snowfall totals. So here's the map one more time. Again, 4 to 7 inches. I think is the most likely totals here for southeastern Windham County. So more like 7, 8 maybe inches of snow in Brattleboro. If you're heading west, if you get to say like Townsend, Dover, or Townsend and Jamaica, you're probably more in like that 4-inch range. I'll go to the map in a little bit and show you, but 3 to 6 inches generally for most of us in the central part of the state along the mountains, and maybe even down into kind of Bennington area, and then less as you head north and west of that. Let's take a look at some areas where what I think is going to happen for snow in specific locales one last time. Fairhaven at 1 to 2 inches, not much up there. Entirely possible Fairhaven sees almost no snow. Rutland, same thing could happen. I think there's a better chance Rutland gets a little bit of accumulation, 1 to 2 to 3 inches is definitely possible. Paulet, a little bit more, 2 to 3 inches. Manchester, just an inch or two there. I think you're going to get this wind direction is not great for Manchester snow wise. So inch or two I think would be likely in Manchester. Arlington, wind direction's a little bit better for Arlington. That's why the 2 to 3, and then Bennington 2 to 3 inches, maybe even 4 in Bennington. Wouldn't be shocked if we got 4 inches of snow in Bennington. For the Green Mountains, Pittsfield's looking at 2 to 4 up north a little bit, and Mount Holly 3 to 4 inches of snow. Peru 3 to 5, Dover 4 to 6, Searsburg 4 to 6, Reedsboro 5 to 7 inches of snow. So basically, along the Green Mountains, the further south you get, the more snow you're going to get. Still not huge totals there. The ski areas, they don't get much of a bump out of this storm because it's not really elevation driven. This is all due to dynamics in the mid levels of the atmosphere that are causing our snow. So places like Killington 2 to 5, Okemo 3 to 5, Bromley 4 to 6, Magic 5 to 7, Stratton 5 to 7. Mount Snow is probably our winter ski areas wise, just because it's the furthest south with 6 to 9 inches of snow there. And then east of the last questions, I think we're good. Thanks for joining me. This is fun, and certainly, if you no sound again, oh well, that probably means it's a good time to end the stream. One last, if you're still here for that last slide, which apparently for some reason is cutting my sound out, so I'm not going to go to the slide because I don't know why. But one last little piece about that. I'm trying to remember what was on the last slide. It was areas east of the Green Mountains, I'm assuming. Dummerston in a line up to, all right, in a line basically from Newfane, Townsend area, up to Bellows Falls, kind of in a half moon circle down to 4, 5, 6 inches of snow there, and a place like Brattleboro, Vernon, Dummerston. That's where we're probably going to get the potential for the most snow. Okay, Thanks again, and thanks for those of you sticking around.